All right, y'all, we got breaking news. Dejounte Murray has finally been traded to the New Orleans Pelicans, a trade that has been inevitable. We've guessed that this trade was going to happen. Don't get me wrong, there's been other suitors. The Lakers were rumored to have interest and everything like that. I think the Spurs had a little bit of traction for a little bit, but it felt like the Pelicans trade was bound to happen at some point. The thing for me, though, is getting this information as it continues to develop. This is real time. This is happening, y'all. There is no Brandon Ingram in this trade report at all, which is very like surprising, mind-boggling, and I just don't understand how this trade happened without them giving up Brandon Ingram. Like it's very confusing. So the first trade and report that came out was that Dejounte Murray was being traded to the Pelicans. Then you go from that to them adding that they are sending Larry Nance, a 2025 first round pick via the Lakers, and a least favorable Milwaukee / Pelicans 2027 first round pick and Larry Nance and more. And then the more came out, and it's still no Brandon Ingram. So in totality, the Pelicans are going to get Dejounte Murray, and the Hawks are going to get Larry Nance, Dyson Daniels, a 2025 first round pick, and a 2027 first round pick. This is crazy. The reason it's crazy is because of a couple things. We were looking at this trade to see that the Hawks were going to find a way to kind of rejuvenate and, have a competent team and get something back that was going to change the tides of the roster, but still get some type of player around DeJounte's level. Because DeJounte was phenomenal in this past season with the Atlanta Hawks. And you're thinking the no-brainer trade is Brandon Ingram. Brandon Ingram's on the last year of that deal going into this next season. You get him. He's a wing. He maybe fits more better with Trae Young. Then you also just got Zachary Ricochet, the first overall pick. You put Clint Capella on the open market. This type of trade right here makes me wonder and scratch my head and think about them maybe selling both, which was something that was thrown out there. But this does not feel like a trade that says we're sticking with Trae Young and we're going to build around him and just go a different slight direction because the DeJounte thing didn't work out how we thought. This tells me that they could be having a fire sale where they're going to change the complete direction of this franchise, and it's going to go to Jalen Johnson, Zachary Ricochet, now Dyson Daniels, and a whole bunch of draft capital after they trade Clint Capella. DeAndre Hunter probably is going to go. Maybe Bogdan Bogdanovich becomes available all of a sudden. Earlier today, they traded AJ Griffin III to the Rockets. So the Hawks may be getting the wheels turning to change the complete direction of where this team is going to go. And then on the flip side, when you talk about the Pelicans, I love the fit of Dejounte Murray. This is one of my favorite landing spots for him, a defensive-minded guard who has high-level playmaking, who has an incredible size as far as the 6'5" to be able to guard other guards on the opposite end. And one thing about Dejounte is I think with Atlanta, he got away from the defense, obviously because he had a more offensive role. And I think sometimes that happens, but we saw that he is a capable defender. He has the tools. And I think if you put him around this group in New Orleans that defended so well last year, it could maybe reignite his defensive prowess that we were, accustomed to seeing and growing to love. Also, another thing is he may not be your primary defender. That puts a lot of pressure and weight on your star player or one of your star players when they have to be a 20-plus point scorer, a facilitator, and then also your best perimeter defender, which was kind of the situation he was going to be in Atlanta, where he's playing second fiddle to Trae Young, but he's still their second best player, still their second best scorer. But then on the opposite end, they're asking him to guard these other players. Now you go into New Orleans where the culture is more defensive. You have a Herb Jones. You know what I mean? You have a solidified foundation of defenders, and you come in and maybe he's not guarding Shai Gilgeous-Alexander one-on-one as a primary defender, but maybe he's getting that second option, that third option, and we see that defense get back to maybe not the exact level that we were accustomed to seeing, but somewhat better than we saw the last couple of years. That's just something that I would hope. Defensive culture can definitely pull out the best defensive version of players. And it says New Orleans was 0-24 when trailing entering the fourth and 2-14 in close games, and see Murray as a player who can generate offense late in games. Pels remain committed to the core that includes Zion and CJ McCollum. Pels are trying to find common ground with Brandon Ingram. So this is interesting. This is a new fold, which is why I'm glad I'm doing this in real time. So they believe in Zion. They obviously love CJ. Phenomenal year from CJ last year. Much better than the year prior to that. You bring in a defensive mind. You bring in a potential defensive minded guy. Matter of fact, you bring in a guy who showed us defensive minded plays. You bring him back into a defensive culture, and you try to keep Brandon Ingram, and this could be an interesting team. They're trying to find a common ground with him. I think they're in a win-win with the Brandon Ingram situation. If you can't find a common ground and you have to move on from Brandon Ingram, you're going to have a lot of suitors, and now you don't have that much work to do. You don't have to try to get a king's ransom, or you don't have to try to get this position, because you now have the guard backcourt and Dejounte and CJ McCollum. You have Trey Murphy III. You have Zion. You have Herb Jones. You have Alvarado. You maybe now can try to trade Brandon Ingram somewhere and get some front court help. You know what I mean? You don't have to rush the Brandon Ingram trade. Maybe you don't figure out the extension right now, this moment, and you do next year. I don't know. But there's just a lot more options for the Pelicans now that they were able to acquire Dejounte Murray without including Brandon Ingram. I think that is a home run hit. They drafted Yves Missy in the NBA draft. The Pelicans are having a hell of a start to free agency. Hell of a start. You put CJ McCollum back now in his scoring mindset, in his natural position of being a shooting guard versus a point guard who's facilitating and trying to carry that role of scoring and passing and involving guys. This team is shaping up to be a really good team in the Western Conference. It's going to rely heavy on Zion Williamson having a healthy year. This team, no matter what they do this offseason, it's going to come back to Zion playing at that level we've seen him play, and we love to see him play at, but then Zion also being available. They have to capitalize on a team like this. I think this is probably one of the best teams, if not, this is the best team that they've had put together since Zion has been there. And if you're able to find a way to meet a common ground with Brandon Ingram and keep him there, and you still have Trey Murphy, this team is going to continue to be loaded. That's Dejounte. Just reading out this lineup, I don't know where Herb Jones goes. Herb Jones come off the bench now. You have Dejounte, CJ. If you meet the common ground with Brandon Ingram, he's your three. And then you have Zion. I don't know who their center is going to be. They drafted Yves Missy. Jonas Valanciunas is going to go into free agency, and they just traded Larry Nance. I don't know who their center is going to be. But just from Noah's starting four, Alvarado comes off that bench now. Herb Jones comes off the bench now. Trey Murphy III still comes off the bench. This team continues to be stacked and loaded. I'm very interested to see how the rest of this shapes out with the Brandon Ingram thing, and I'm very interested to see who's going to be the starting center for them now that they kind of got this four-man rotation kind of locked in and loaded. So this is I can't stress how good of a trade this is for the Pelicans. The Hawks are ending the Murray Young experiment, bringing on a promising young wing in Dyson Daniels and getting a pick in the D2025 draft. Landry Fields knew Hawks had to make a move in backcourt, and there's still more offseason work to be done. So that's not the necessary report that I was kind of expecting. It's still up in the air. It's not like hey, we're ending the entire marriage between the backcourt. This still sounds like we are in the Trae Young business. I'm just extremely interested to see where's the pivot for that talented player to come in and replace the production of Dejounte Murray. I'm always a guy that believes in the saying of less is more. I talked about the less is more theory years ago with the Boston Celtics when they had so many bodies on that team with Kyrie, Gordon Hayward, Brown, Tatum, Marcus Morris, Marcus Smart, Terry Rozier, all of these names, Al Horford, all of these guys, right? And people thought, oh, man, Gordon Hayward and Kyrie were going to come back and be healthy, and they were just going to run away with the NBA title. But it was so much going on in that one season. They had so many guys playing for contracts and playing for this and playing for that, that when they came back, I was like, I'm not a believer in the Celtics. I think it's going to be too much going on, and I'm a believer in the less is more theory. And the next year, I was like, this team may be better because of the less is more theory. I don't know if that's what the Hawks are thinking. Maybe the Hawks are saying, hey, We'll find the Dejounte Murray production elsewhere. We just believe in the fit with Trae Young. We just need the fit with Trae Young. We have Trae Young. We have Jalen Johnson. We got to figure out what we're doing with Clint Capella. We have Bogdanovich. We just got Zachary Richardson. So, I mean, again, I'm just trying to make some sense of it. I don't know how much of a player they're going to be in the free agency market. I don't know if they're stockpiling picks. I also had a scenario where they were a team that could be a dark horse to try to contact the Heat for Jimmy Butler, but that trade also included Dejounte Murray. I don't know. But they are going to have to find somebody that is an above average player. You get what I'm saying? Like I don't think you can just make this trade and throw Dyson Daniels into the starting lineup and think you're going to be a team that's going to make the playoffs next year. You weren't able to make the playoffs with Dejounte and Trae and the emerging Jalen Johnson and Clint Capella. You're going to have to find some way to get some of that star power back that you lost with Dejounte. And Dejounte, as much as I love him, it ain't like Dejounte is some superstar player. You know what I mean? I don't even think Dejounte wasn't even an all-star with the Hawks. But, like, you need to replace that. Point blank, period. Again, crazy trade to not have Zion. To not have Brandon Ingram involved. I'm calling the Pelicans the winner of this trade until we see what happens with the Atlanta Hawks. I keep looking at the depth chart of the Pelicans, and it's somebody updated it now. Underdog Fantasy before we get out of here. Dejounte, Alvarado, McCollum, Jordan Hawkins. I forgot about Jordan Hawkins because they're that loaded. Ingram, Trey Murphy III, Zion Williamson. They have Herb Jones as the backup to Zion Williamson because there's just nowhere else to put him, I guess. And then E.J. Liddell. They have Valanciunas with a air stick next to his name because he's a free agent. And then you have Yves Missy and then Jeremiah Robinson Earl. This is a loaded team, man. This is a loaded team. I cannot wait to see the rest of this. So yeah, that's the breaking news for Dejounte going to the New Orleans Pelicans. A trade that me, you, all of y'all, I don't care if you were an NBA fan, an NBA media person, a YouTuber, or actual reporter. This fit in this trade was something that a lot of us felt was inevitable. You know what I mean? A lot of us felt was inevitable. And I wonder if the Lakers or a lot of these other teams are looking at this trade like, that's all they gave up? We had a Larry Nance and a Dyson Daniels to give you. We could have gave you that. So we'll see. As always, I appreciate y'all. Like I told y'all before, make sure you locked in here at Pee Wee the Plug all offseason long. We're going to be on top of every single thing going down in this offseason. I appreciate y'all, and I'll see y'all next time. I'm out. Peace.